No one saved me a seat at the family dinner. It's just a celebration for successful people, my sister said. So I ordered a pizza, ate by myself, and turned on the TV, only to see my own face on national news. By the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. You know that feeling when your own family, the people who are supposed to have your back, deliver a gut punch so deep it takes your breath away? Well, last weekend, my sister tried to make me feel invisible at a family dinner, just hours before the entire world found out my little lab experiment was about to change the lives of countless children. And honestly, the irony? It was almost too perfect to believe. My name's Andrea, and I'm 28. For the past 4 years, I basically lived and breathed my work as a research scientist in San Diego. I'm part of a team developing a groundbreaking treatment for Batten syndrome, a horrible rare childhood disease. We're talking 16-hour days, missed holidays, canceled dates, the whole shebang. But I didn't care. It was worth it, because we were actually making a difference. This wasn't just a job, it was my life's passion. My family? They never quite got it. My parents, Linda and Robert, are retired teachers. Bless their hearts, they think anything more complex than high school chemistry is just showing off. And then there's my older sister, Emma. She works in marketing, married with 2 kids, living that quintessential suburban dream my parents always pictured for both of us. Emma's always been competitive, but it really ramped up after I got my PhD. She'd throw out these little jabs, like I was too smart for my own good or probably too busy with my fancy job to care about family. The thing is, I did care. I showed up for every birthday, every school play. I just also happened to be incredibly passionate about my work. 3 weeks ago, everything changed professionally. Our team achieved a massive breakthrough. We crushed phase 2 clinical trials, and the results? Incredible. Kids who were rapidly deteriorating were stabilizing, some even improving. The FDA fast-tracked us, and the NIH was quietly reviewing our data for funding. I'm telling you, it was the kind of news that makes you ugly cry happy tears in the lab bathroom. The story started small, picked up by medical journals, then some science blogs, eventually hitting local news. Nothing huge, but enough to get people in my field talking. I was so proud, but I tried to keep it humble. So, I called my parents, thinking they'd be thrilled. "That's nice, honey," Mom said, in that distracted tone. "Emma just got promoted to senior marketing coordinator. We're so proud of her." My heart sank. That familiar sting. I pushed it down. "That's great about Emma, but Mom, this treatment could help save children's lives." She just said, "I'm sure it's very important to you, dear." "Oh, your father's calling me for dinner." That should have been my first warning sign. A few days later, Emma called. She was unusually cheerful, which always made me suspicious. "Andrea, I heard about your little science project making the news." "That's so cute." I bit back. "It's not a little project, Emma. We're talking about a treatment for a fatal disease." Right, she brushed me off. "Well, speaking of achievements, Dave and I are having a dinner party this Saturday to celebrate my promotion. Thought it'd be nice to have everyone." I was actually touched. "That sounds wonderful. What time?" 6:30, just bring yourself. I've got everything covered." Saturday rolled around, and I was genuinely excited. I'd been working so hard, a family dinner sounded perfect. I dressed nicely, brought a bottle of Emma's favorite wine anyway, and drove to her house. As I pulled up, I could see the dining room was packed. Emma, Dave, my parents, Dave's parents, Emma's kids, and a bunch of other couples. The table was impeccably set with her wedding china. Dave answered the door, all smiles. "Andrea. Great to see you, come on in." I walked into the dining room, wine bottle in hand, and immediately, this weird feeling washed over me. Something was off. Everyone was already seated. Every single chair was occupied. I stood there, looking around, confused. Where should I sit?" Emma looked up from the head of the table. And I swear, for a split second, I saw a flash in her eyes. Not surprise. Satisfaction. Oh gosh, Andrea. I totally miscounted the chairs. We have exactly enough for everyone who RSVP'd. My blood ran cold. But you invited me. I'm here. I know, and I'm so glad you came. You can just grab a chair from the kitchen. I looked towards the kitchen. Leaning against the counter was a cheap, metal folding chair. One that would put me 6 inches lower than everyone else. Emma, you knew I was coming. You called and invited me yourself. She gave me that fake innocent shrug she'd perfected as a child. I guess I forgot to count you when I was planning. It's not a big deal, right? It's just a chair. My parents, sitting right next to Emma, were studiously avoiding my gaze. Dave's parents looked uncomfortable. The other couples, Emma's work friends, tried to pretend they weren't witnessing this excruciating family drama. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, I think I'll pass on dinner. I placed the wine bottle gently on the counter. Congratulations on your promotion, Emma. I turned for the door. Andrea, don't be dramatic. Emma called after me. It's just a celebration of success. Some of us have real achievements to celebrate. That stopped me dead in my tracks. I turned around slowly. The entire room was silent. Even Emma's kids had stopped chattering. Real achievements? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Well, you know, she went on, emboldened by the silence, things that actually matter to people. Not everyone can relate to your little lab experiments. In that moment, I could have said so much. I could have listed my degrees, my publications, the fact that my little lab experiments might save children's lives. I could have asked my parents why they were just sitting there, letting their daughter humiliate their other daughter. Instead, I just said, enjoy your dinner. And I walked out. I drove home in a weird state of shock. It wasn't just Emma's cruelty, though that was brutal. It was my parents. They sat there. They watched. They said nothing. When I got to my apartment, I was too wound up to eat, but I ordered a pizza anyway. Comfort food felt appropriate. While I waited, I poured myself a glass of wine, trying to process. That's when my phone rang. It was Dr. Marcus Chen, my colleague, our lead researcher. Andrea, are you watching Channel 7 News? No. Why? Turn it on. Now. I grabbed the remote, flicked it on. The anchor was mid-sentence. Local research team's groundbreaking work on Batten syndrome treatment has caught the attention of the National Institutes of Health. And then my face filled the screen. It was footage from our press conference. My voice, from the TV, was saying, the implications of this breakthrough cannot be overstated. For families dealing with Batten syndrome, this represents hope where there previously was none. The anchor came back on. Dr. Andrea Mitchell, a San Diego native, has been leading the research team. In a press release issued Friday afternoon, the NIH announced substantial additional funding to accelerate the final phase of clinical trials. I nearly dropped my wine glass. NIH funding? This wasn't just huge, it was monumental. My phone rang again. Marcus. Did you know about the NIH announcement? No. When did this happen? Apparently, they'd been reviewing our Phase 2 data for weeks. The news stations just picked it up tonight. Andrea, this is incredible. Do you know what this means? I did. It meant accelerating our timeline by at least 18 months. It meant national attention. It meant kids with Batten syndrome would get treatment sooner than we ever dreamed. I can't believe this is happening, I whispered. Believe it, he said. Oh, and Andrea? I just got off the phone with a CNN producer. They want to interview you Monday morning. Something about young scientists making breakthrough discoveries. After I hung up, I sat there, pizza box on my lap, watching myself on the news 2 more times. The story was spreading like wildfire. Twitter and LinkedIn notifications exploded. I thought about Emma's words, real achievements, things that actually matter to people. The irony was so potent, it almost physically hurt. Then I saw Channel 3 segment. They interviewed Dr. Patricia Williams, a pediatric neurologist who specialized in Batten syndrome. She was practically glowing. What Dr. Mitchell and her team have accomplished represents a paradigm shift. For families dealing with Batten syndrome, this isn't just medical news. It's a miracle. A miracle. I put my pizza down. While I'd been sitting in Emma's kitchen looking at a cheap folding chair, families across the country were hearing that their children might actually have a chance at life. My laptop was still open. Big mistake. My inbox was flooded. Colleagues, patient advocacy groups, and then these emails from families. The first was from a mother in Portland. Dr. Mitchell, my son David was diagnosed with Batten syndrome when he was 6. He's 9 now. We've been told to prepare for the worst. But I just saw you on the news, and for the first time in 3 years, I'm allowing myself to hope. Thank you. You are a hero. I was crying again. A hero. This woman called me a hero. And 3 hours ago, my own sister made me feel like an inconvenience. The next was from a grandfather. My granddaughter Lucy has Batten syndrome. When your story came on, my daughter called me crying. But for the first time, they were happy tears. Maybe now she has a chance. God bless you. Email after email. All variations of the same theme. Families living in the shadow of a terminal diagnosis suddenly seeing light. I cried into my pizza. Then one from a teenage girl named Ashley, with juvenile Batten syndrome. Dr. Mitchell, I'm 16. Most people with my type don't live past their early 20s. I was trying to decide if I should even bother applying to colleges. But after seeing your interview, I'm filling out my applications tonight. Thank you for giving me a reason to plan for a future. That one broke me completely. I just sobbed, overwhelmed by the weight of what we'd accomplished and what it meant to real people. My phone kept buzzing with texts from friends, former classmates, professors, even my landlord. But still nothing from my family. I tried to rationalize it. Saturday night, they're busy, they don't watch the news. But deep down, I knew. Someone would have tagged them, sent them a link. They'd seen it. And they were staying quiet. That silence hurt worse than Emma's humiliation. Later that night, Dr. Sarah Kim, a brilliant researcher from the University of Washington, called. Andrea, I had to call. What you've accomplished is incredible. Our approaches are complementary. Have you considered combination therapy? We talked for an hour. Her call shifted something in me. Earlier, I was so focused on my family's rejection, my own hurt. But talking to Dr. Kim, reading those emails, seeing the scientific community's response, it reminded me why I chose this path. Not for recognition, not for awards, and definitely not to prove anything to my family. It was for Ashley, applying to college. It was for David and Lucy, and all the others. That realization didn't make Emma's cruelty hurt less, but it put it in perspective. My worth wasn't determined by whether my family understood my work. It was determined by the impact I could have on the world. I didn't call my family that night. I figured they'd reach out when they saw the news. My pizza, by the way, was excellent. Sometimes the best meals are the ones you eat alone. Sunday morning, I was up at 5 a.m. for the CNN interview. National television. A big step up from local news. The interview went well. The anchor, Maria Santos, was genuinely interested. She asked what inspired me. My parents are both teachers, I found myself saying. They taught me that the most important work is the work that helps people learn and grow. I just took that lesson into the lab. It felt good to honor them, even after everything. After the interview, my phone started exploding again. Texts from colleagues who saw CNN, calls from professors, medical journalists. LinkedIn notifications every few minutes. But still, nothing from my family. The silence was deafening. I kept checking, thinking I'd missed a call. Nothing. Radio silence from the people who should have been the first to congratulate me. Around 9 a.m., my phone rang. Not my parents, but Dr. Elizabeth Warren from Boston Children's Hospital. Andrea, I just finished watching your CNN interview. Absolutely brilliant. We have several families here asking about your research. We talked about Boston Children's becoming a Phase 3 trial site. And then she said, I've been asked to put together a panel for the American Medical Association's annual conference. Would you consider being our keynote speaker? The AMA conference. I'd dreamed of speaking there someday. Yes, absolutely. 3 months ago, I was toiling away in relative obscurity. Now I was being asked to give keynote addresses. My phone rang again. Washington, D.C. area code. Dr. Mitchell, this is David Chen from Senator Martinez's office. The senator chairs the subcommittee on health research funding, and she'd like to invite you to testify before Congress. I nearly dropped the phone. Testify before Congress? Yes, I'd be honored. Then the Today Show called. Good Morning America. A documentary filmmaker. The emails from families kept pouring in. One from a pediatric ICU nurse, Patricia, Dr. Mitchell, I've held too many children as they took their last breaths. When I saw your interview this morning, I cried tears of joy thinking about all the children I might get to see go home healthy. Thank you for giving me hope in my profession again. Around noon, a call that made me sit up straight. Dr. Francis Collins, former director of the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Mitchell, I hope you don't mind me calling directly. I wanted to personally congratulate you on this breakthrough. My quiet little research project was becoming a media phenomenon. Then, around noon, the call I'd been expecting. Mom? Andrea, honey, we just saw you on the television. Which time? I asked, regretting the sarcasm instantly. Don't be smart with me. We had no idea this was such a big deal. I tried to tell you it was important when I called last week. There was a pause. Well, your father and I are very proud of you. Are you? Because last night Emma said my work was just little lab experiments that don't matter to people, and you sat there and said nothing. Another pause, longer this time. Emma was just excited about her own news. You know how she gets. Mom, she deliberately didn't save me a seat at dinner. She made me feel unwelcome in front of strangers, and you watched it happen. Now, Andrea, I'm sure it wasn't intentional. It was absolutely intentional, and you know it. I could hear my father's voice in the background. Your father says we should all just put this behind us. Family is family. Is it? Because I don't feel very much like family right now. Andrea Michelle Mitchell, that is enough. We raised you better than to hold grudges. You raised me to stand up for myself. At least, I thought you did. I hung up before she could respond. An hour later, Emma called. Andrea, I owe you an apology. I waited. I had no idea your thing was going to be such a big deal. If I had known, I obviously would have made sure you had a proper seat. My thing? Emma, it was a big deal yesterday. It was a big deal last week when I called Mom and Dad. It was a big deal 3 years ago when I started working on it. Well, I didn't know that because you never asked. Because you never listen when I talk about my work. Because you spent years dismissing everything I do as unimportant. That's not fair. I've always been supportive. You called it little lab experiments last night. You made me feel like an outsider at a family dinner. I was excited about my promotion. I wanted one night to be about me. It could have been about you, Emma. I would have been happy to celebrate your promotion. But instead, you made it about putting me down. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. You absolutely did mean it. The question is why. She was quiet for a long moment. Look, it's hard sometimes, okay? You're the smart one. You always have been. You got the scholarships, the degrees, the fancy job, and I'm just me. You're my sister. That's not just anything. But it is. And when you called about your research thing, and Mom and Dad were so excited. They weren't excited, Emma. They barely listened. Well, they should have been. And I guess I was jealous that you had something so important to be excited about. And all I had was a promotion at a car dealership. It was the most honest thing Emma had said to me in years. Your promotion is important, too, I said. I was genuinely happy for you when you told me about it. I know. And I'm sorry, Andrea. I really am. I appreciate the apology, but Emma, this isn't the first time. You've been making digs about my career for years. I know. I'll do better. I hope so. We hung up on a tentative truce. I wasn't sure if she truly understood, but it was a start. Monday brought another wave of media. The Today Show interview aired, my phone exploded. More interview requests, speaking engagements. And what truly touched me, patient advocacy groups reaching out. A woman named Carol called, her 8-year-old daughter had Batten syndrome. Dr. Mitchell, when we got Lily's diagnosis, doctors told us to prepare for the worst. But seeing your interview, for the first time in 2 years, I have hope. I was crying by the time she hung up. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't just about career advancement. This was about children like Lily, who might get to grow up instead of dying before their 10th birthday. Tuesday, even more media. #Batten Breakthrough trended on Twitter. Other researchers shared their work, patients shared their stories. And then, Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Dr. Mitchell, this is Rebecca Chen from the MacArthur Foundation. The MacArthur Foundation? As in, the Genius Grants? We've been following your work. We'd like to discuss the possibility of you being considered for future fellowship opportunities. I literally sat down on the floor of my lab. Yes, I would be very interested. I called Marcus, appropriately excited but realistic. Andrea, even being considered puts you in an incredibly elite group. The possibilities were overwhelming. That evening, still in the lab, my phone rang. Mom. Again. Andrea, we need to talk. About Sunday. About Emma. About everything. I'm listening. Your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking since we saw you on television, and we realized something. I waited. We've been treating you unfairly for years. I was not expecting that. We were so proud of Emma for being normal, for wanting things we understood, that we didn't know how to be proud of you for being extraordinary. Mom, let me finish. We were intimidated by your intelligence, by your success. We didn't understand your work, so we acted like it wasn't important. But watching you on television, hearing you talk about helping sick children, we realized we've been terrible parents to you. I was crying now, sitting alone in my lab, tears streaming down my face. You haven't been terrible parents. Yes, we have. We let Emma treat you badly because it was easier than dealing with our own feelings of inadequacy. We failed you, Andrea. I love you, Mom. We love you, too, so much. And we are so incredibly proud of you. Not just because you're on television, but because you've dedicated your life to helping people. That's who you are, and we should have celebrated that from the beginning. It's not too late. My father's voice came on the line, shaky with emotion. Andrea, I owe you an apology. I've been a fool. I taught high school chemistry for 30 years, trying to get kids excited about science. And my own daughter becomes a scientist who might save children's lives, and I acted like it didn't matter. It matters to me that you're proud now. I've always been proud. I was just too stupid and stubborn to show it. We talked for another hour. It wasn't a complete fix. Years of feeling unsupported don't disappear overnight. But it was a real beginning. Wednesday brought news. MacArthur wanted a formal interview. The Today Show wanted a follow-up. And most importantly, the NIH announced our fast-track Phase 3 trials would begin in 10 months instead of the originally projected 2.5 years. That afternoon, Emma called. "Andrea, can we meet for coffee? I want to talk properly." We met at a cafe. Emma looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "I've been watching all your interviews," she started, "reading the articles, and I finally understand what you do. Like, really understand it." She pulled out her phone and showed me a video of a news segment. A family with a child who had Batten syndrome. This little boy, Tyler, he's the same age as my Jake. His mom was talking about how they were just waiting for him to die. And then she heard about your research. She said it was the first time in 3 years she'd felt hope. Emma was crying now. "That's what you do, Andrea. You give parents hope that their children might live." And I called it a little lab experiment. "Emma, no, let me finish. I need to say this. I've been jealous of you our entire lives. You were always smarter, more accomplished, more everything. And instead of being proud to be your sister, I've spent years trying to make you feel small so I could feel big. I never wanted to make you feel small. I know. That's what makes it worse. You never did anything but support me, and I repaid that by tearing you down." She wiped her eyes. "I don't know if you can forgive me, but I want to try to be better. I want to be the sister you deserve." "You already are, Emma. You're here, aren't you?" We hugged across the table, both of us crying into our coffee cups. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Sure. When you were sitting alone eating pizza on Saturday night, did you know about the NIH funding and all the media attention?" I laughed. "I had no idea. I thought I was just having a quiet night at home, licking my wounds." "And you weren't angry? You didn't order that pizza thinking about revenge?" "Emma, I ordered pizza because I was sad and hungry. The revenge was purely accidental. That somehow makes it even better." Over the next few weeks, things continued to snowball. The MacArthur Foundation was still just a possibility, but the NIH funding was real, substantial. The first patients for Phase 3 trials were being recruited. Children like Tyler, like Lily, would soon have access to a treatment that might save their lives. My relationship with my family was healing. My parents started asking detailed questions about my work, actually listening. Emma began sharing my research updates on her social media with genuine pride. "My sister is saving lives," she posted. I couldn't be more proud. A month after that infamous dinner party, Emma called with an invitation. "I'm throwing another dinner party," she said. "A proper one this time. It's a celebration. I've invited the whole family, plus some friends who wanted to meet you after seeing you on TV." "Emma, you don't have to." "I want to. And Andrea, I've set aside the best seat in the house for you, head of the table, right across from me." The dinner party was wonderful. Emma introduced me as my sister, the genius scientist, and she clearly meant it. My parents spent the evening telling stories about how smart I'd been as a child, remembering things I'd forgotten myself. But the best moment came during dessert, when Emma's 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, came up to me. "Aunt Andrea, Mommy says you help sick kids get better." "I try to, sweetheart. I want to be a scientist like you when I grow up." "You can be anything you want to be, Sophie. Will you teach me about science?" I looked across the table at Emma, who was beaming with pride. "I would love to." As I drove home that night, I thought about how dramatically my life had changed in just a few weeks. The recognition, the funding, the media attention, it was all incredible. But what mattered most was that my family finally understood who I was and what I was trying to accomplish. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planned at all. Sometimes it's just living your life so fully and authentically that the people who tried to diminish you can't help but see how wrong they were. I never did finish that pizza from the night of Emma's first dinner party. But I have a feeling it was the most important meal I never ate. Because while I was sitting alone in my apartment, thinking my work didn't matter to anyone, children and families around the world were about to get news that would change their lives forever. And that's worth more than any seat at any table. The phone calls and interview requests have finally slowed down, but the real work is just beginning. Phase 3 trials start in 3 months. If all goes well, we could have an FDA-approved treatment within 2 years. There are still challenges, of course. Research is unpredictable, and there are no guarantees in medicine. But for the first time in years, I feel like my family is truly behind me, understanding not just what I do, but why it matters. Emma sent me a text yesterday, saw another article about the trial starting soon. So proud to be your sister. I replied, so proud to be yours, too. And I meant it. Because at the end of the day, we're family. Even when we fail each other, even when we hurt each other, we're still family. The difference now is that we're choosing to do better. That's the real victory, I think. Not the media attention or the awards, or even the breakthrough research. The victory is in choosing to see each other clearly, to support each other genuinely, and to celebrate each other's successes without reservation. It took a national news story for my family to really see me. But now that they do, I don't think they'll look away again. And the next time someone asks me about my little lab experiments, I'll just smile and tell them about Tyler, and Lily, and all the other children who might get to grow up because of the work we do in those labs. That's what real achievement looks like. Not a seat at the table, but the knowledge that you've used your gifts to make the world a little bit better. The pizza was excellent, by the way. I highly recommend eating alone sometimes. You never know what might happen while you're just discovering how much you enjoy your own company.